But the main question you need to understand is, when do you use traditional automation and when do you use AI agents?
We think of customers, there's what they want and then there's what they need.
Then we're working on something that, if it works, is going to be fundamentally game-changing.
We'll make everything self-hosted. Sebastian, Boris, a huge welcome. Boris, we're just sat in awe of this flipping crazy t-shirt we've got going on. The multicolority dude's really setting the standard, and Sebastian's got the backline. Guys, if you haven't seen the last episode, Sebastian's looks after, like, is it Applied AI at Make? Dude, is like the official title we'll go with?
Yes, head of Applied AI, that's the title.
Okay, part of that job description is having a very kind of like fluorescent background, a kind of very nice purple and pink. If it was any other color, he'd be fired immediately. And then Boris, what are you calling yourself these days?
You can call me an account manager. That's what I do here at Make. And I just realized that it's like me and Sebastian, we have like flip colors. So his background, or my background is his t-shirt, and his background is my t-shirt. So I promise we didn't plan this, but I think it's a good
This is coordinated. This is absolute lies. This is definitely coordinated. Well, guys, I want to say a huge welcome. Great to have you back on the channel. We're pip and popping, got a lot of stuff. Let's just dive straight in with the bazillion-dollar conversation, right, on AI agents. So last time we had this podcast, we basically talked about that it was in the works, and that launched, I think is it out of beta now, Sebastian? Do you want to run us through, like, when did you launch it? How's that first X weeks gone from your point of view? Maybe some context in terms of why you built it the way you did. Just kind of share that beautiful story, and then we can double click into some stuff.
Yeah, more than happy to dive into this. So towards like your first question, is it out of beta? It's in the middle of the beta. So we went from closed beta to open beta right now. It's available for customers to get feedback, to know what we did anticipate, what they like us to do better, what works already great, and where to take this product. So yeah, if you're hearing this, test it out, give us feedback, and let us know where we should take it.
Excellent. And like, what was your thought process then when designing agents? Like, because I guess it's difficult to think from first principles sometimes, especially if there are existing products out there. So what was your kind of thought process in your kind of architectural design? Did you did you have a target customer in mind when you built them?
Yeah, so as we're an existing software automation platform that integrates between SaaS, we have kind of like this foundation layer where we are really good at integrating towards others. So having these integrations, we call them scenarios, where you automate certain things as a central piece of your agent. That's like kind of like clear, because that's our foundation. On the other side, we were really carefully thinking about, is the agent just something you have in your scenario, or is the agent something that operates globally? So you can have scenarios without agents, or you can have agents without scenarios. So we choose agents to be global, so you can reuse agents. In the first place, that makes it a bit more complex, because it's not that you're just like importing an agent and it does everything. No, it's more like you have a lot of reusability components. So you can do a lot of crazy variations. That allows you to scale in complexity, but since these components are standalone, they are also fairly easy to manage and to scale later on. And that's where we'd like to take it.
So do you, in that kind of architecture, but like, does it exist within the scenario? Is it kind of like across the platform? You see, like, I guess, like the compounding benefits, your agents being, when you build out that, I call it like Iron Man's toolkit of scenarios, when you build out all the kind of things you can lock into it, you sort of think like the more complex and the deeper you get into that ecosystem of tools, do you think like the benefits just kind of like skyrocket up? That's the vision with it.
So that's really hard to say, like when you're designing something that this is the thing that will skyrocket. That would be amazing. I mean, if you launch a new startup, it's like kind of like the feature that you bet on and then skyrockets, of course, yes. But when you're like more in a mature organization where you have multiple stakeholders, you can anticipate certain things will come for sure, like in single modules, like in N8N. That's something that we knew from the very first beginning, that this will come and that this is inevitable, and we need to trust this challenge. Nevertheless, can you already make an agent work without this step? And we came to the conclusion, yes. And what are the steps we can take towards this to already unlock value and not let customers wait till, I don't know, September? We'll have like a final agent product, and then you release something to the market where you think you've covered all the features, but you actually don't know if all these things are going to be used, et cetera, et cetera. So it's sometimes better to just say, okay, we allow the technical foundations, and from there, we listen to the customer feedback, we research the market, we see, okay, well, where's the demand unfolding? And then we start investing into these specific areas where we then can say these things hopefully skyrocket.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think as well, it's like it's very easy to spend months on a whiteboard developing a product before it's even made contact with a customer. You can very easily find yourself building out nooks and crannies for things that actually people don't want anyway. And like, dude, we don't want the 90% of the stuff that you develop. We want to double click into it. So I think like conceptually, it's good to get something out in contact with the customer. One of the really cool big things that and I know you released this in beta that I hear a lot of like great constructive feedback around is the visibility of what the agent's doing as it's doing the things. Is that something that you recognize? Like what kind of, maybe you could share a bit about your roadmap and some of the things you really want to, build on and develop with the agents in Make.
Yeah, happy to do so. So there's the history piece, like the reasoning steps, these execution steps. They're right now in the scenario history, and they are in the agent history baked in. So right now, we are working to actually visualize the history way better, and this is something that's coming. Also, that you have a possibility to just simply test the agent from like a central setup. These things are definitely things we hear in the feedback and that they're coming. Overall, the user experience is something we will invest in, that it is easier to build, easier to manage, easier to check. Nevertheless, and this is important because we're not we could be treated as an agent builder platform, but our DNA is an automation platform. So if you're really good at Make, and if you know how to build scenarios in Make, and if you know how to prompt, you are able to use an agent straightforward today. But if you are a new customer that never heard about automation, never heard about scenarios, never heard about agents, you will have a hard time setting it up.
I think that's interesting. I think one interesting thing as well about agents, and it's kind of like we talk about this a lot in the AI space, these kind of trends, and when you actually, and Boris, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I know you lean a lot into your enterprise, larger clients, which I think is really good to look at because this is the stuff that's working in the big organizations, right? I think about my clients, I think about the community and stuff. Actually, AI agents, in terms of like what percentage of real life builds, is relatively low because most of the time you want deterministic automations, right? You want fixed inputs, fixed outputs. It's not to say that agents aren't relevant, right? They voice anytime you need that variability, but the vast majority of cases of the bread and butter, like standard automation. So, Bryce, I'd be keen to know, like, from your point of view, the agent features, Make in general, any insight you could share from what you're seeing enterprise side and like the feature adaptability and that sort of stuff.
Yes, I think there's a few ways to answer this question, but the main question you need to understand is when do you use traditional automation, like traditional AI automation, where, like you said, it's deterministic, you plan out every step, and when do you use AI agents? And I think AI agents, they're getting a lot of hype right now. So I think some people are even possibly confusing AI agents with traditional automation and vice versa, where they think, potentially this automation, it can do a bunch of different things that it can't do, where when you want to position it, because Jack, I know you have a lot of your audience, they're freelancers or the small business owners that build these AI automations. I think in terms of the enterprise side, I think what we need to do is like, you need to think bigger, right? So instead of just thinking of, hey, let me build out this AI agent for, this certain customer, and just like we started at the beginning, where you build the agent first, and then you talk to the customer. Where I think you should take the approach of talking to the customer first, and then building out the agent or building out the AI automation, because then you can provide a much more sophisticated solution, and you can also charge more for those kind of features. Where when you build out like a generic, customer service agent or something like that, you're not going to be able to leverage that to get more for your business.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. You've got to start with the problem and then work backwards to actually, in light of this, what is the most reliable solution from this. So, what I'd love to double click on actually is your vision. Actually, and maybe we could wrap that around the agent conversation, but also like as a platform. What's your like boldest vision on the agent side and like anything you guys connecting to make? Because we've got people playing with the grid. I'm hearing interesting things about that. But what's the master evil plan on that side?
I mean, it's some of the things we keep for ourselves, of course, but I mean, there are people, I think they understand already that grid with agents can become really powerful, and that if you are already in grid customer, you can see how agents call other agents. So this is actually really interesting. Um, I think if you're like thinking, and this is just my personal opinion, right? It's not something that represents Make. It's just me who's reading a lot about the industry, who's trying to follow some trends, and the market changes so fast, so it's so uncertain. But one thing that like over the last like 2 3 years turned out when really thinking about applied AI and applied product development with LLMs, which is kind of like really new industry because it gives a lot of uncertainty. Previously, you had a bug and you try to fix a bug by investing more in development. And just this week, we were like, yeah, let's just change a model.
Yeah.
And the bug disappears. So ultimately, what we see is, okay, we need to be ready for iterations. So production grade agents in the future. Your model provider will change, your model will change. How do you evaluate agents? How do you bring agents to production grade, and how can you make agents actually reliable, manageable? So I think like in the long term, like this is the game. Like, yeah, visually, user experience wise, all of these things, they're relevant. If the product is not accessible, that's not great. But when you think like, I mean, I really liked what Jensen yesterday said. It's like an infinite game. So, like, and if you think like really strategically long term, it's about, okay, we have now this technology. We see, for example, GPM Morgan saying, yeah, well, we see a lot of security issues coming from AI code. We see a lot of security issues coming around. So how do you actually make it production ready? And like, don't get me wrong, these Telegram, Slack use cases we see all over the internet, these YouTube cases, all of these things, LinkedIn outreach, that's all great. But I think where we really want to see agents in the future is someone who's really doing your accounting job, somebody who's doing your contract writing job, somebody who's doing CRM analysis and identifying which ICP has not been contacted for let's say for half a year. So really complex, trusted workflows. This is for me production grade, where I think agents are not fully there yet. If you test different agent platforms, it's a lot of times about social media, marketing, but IT operations, central operations, contract management, things like our customers use to automate and determinism, they're not yet there covered with agents overall. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm mistaken, maybe I can learn something new there. But this is how I see the market. So I think ultimately, coming back to your question regarding the vision, make agents production grade and easy to use.
Yeah, I think that makes it. I think interestingly with agents, when we often think about them, we think about them like there being a guy sat on a desk, you get to tap on the shoulders, you don't need it anymore, get out of here. And there's an agent replaces him. In actuality, until they get to a certain level of quality, it's more about replacing and augmenting with roles, right? It's like we're going to take like this 80% of the really boring stuff that you don't need to do. But actually, we're not at the point where they can be let loose in the field to start sending off invoices by themselves. Yeah, exactly. Without the strict controls and procedural like oversight. I mean, there are obviously certain use cases like voice AI, like setting appointments and stuff like that, but it's not fully at the point where you can automate every role. It's really from 0 to 99% or 100%. What percentage point can we automate from that role? So what I'm seeing in businesses is most of the times like they're not always replacing the roles. They're just kind of taking out certain percentage levels of different roles and support with systems. But interestingly, on the agent point, the funny quirk of an automator is to automate something that actually should just never be automated. Like we will spend 20 hours automating something that takes us like 10 minutes a month to do, right? And that's always like the inclination, but you've got to get the right ROI. One of the funny quirks I've seen is that people just create things to automate, but the time of creation actually far exceeds the value of doing it. So I think we're just going to get to the point where a greater percentage of the role gets automated until we get to step two. But one of the really cool things I think about your platform and the other automation building platforms is that you are aligned with AI. As AI actually gets better, your product offering gets better. So how do you see, I guess, AI development making Make better? Obviously, user experience, more things they can do, but good to get your thoughts on that.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, I'd love to, Boris, please.
With obviously with AI, you're seeing a lot of like AI companies pop up with Lovable, with different types of AI use cases. I mean, it's like every company right now in the market wants to have something AI. Their investors want them to have AI, and AI is just like this big buzzword. And it's like you guys were talking about, where the AI agents are not production ready. Like, we're not seeing entire departments, whole roles being replaced with agents right now. And the reason for that is because it's not that the agent doesn't know what to do. It's like the agent is doing things that you don't want to do, where it's not production ready, where you have these like security concerns, where it's not clear on where it hallucinates, where it makes mistakes, where you don't want it to make mistakes, where that like deterministic workflows are still much more valuable than the agents themselves. And like what Sebastian was saying, the long-term goal is that, yeah, we want to make these production ready. We want businesses to be able to deploy them. And, you know, it's not that we want to replace the employees, but in an ideal world, I see employees being trained on how to build these agents, and then they use the agents to get rid of like 40%, 50% of the manual work that they do, so they can focus on driving the revenue or driving whatever role it is that they have.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well said, man. Well, actually, I think on that point, then, if I drew a circle around the agent things, like one kind of question for the next thing is, what is on your roadmap right now for agents? And maybe you could also touch on like the multi-agent systems, right? Agents calling other agents. Like, what can people expect to see over the next couple of months? And like, what do you think about multi-agent workflows?
Okay. So I just built this morning a multi-agent workflow with actually like sub-agents and different workflows where I had different agents. And that's actually really neat and nice. And I was able to reuse my scenario in MCP and in another agent, which is kind of cool because you can really like use your scenarios as like an API interface. So this is something that's really neat when it comes like to multi-agents. Now, how you manage multi-agents, how you have implement like A2A frameworks like from Google or so down the line, no thoughts on it yet. Like early understanding, early reading, but no precise. Also customer requests, also customer vision there is not there yet. So what's on our roadmap in terms of AI and AI agents? So a lot of times companies, because of some competitors, mix match AI automation with agents. So we get a lot of times like, yeah, I've seen this AI agent. It's like, yeah, just a scenario with an OpenAI module.
Yeah.
Okay, let's call it agent, but it's not an agent. So in terms of the overall AI strategy we're looking at is we have like 3 major pillars that we want to work on is make it easier to consume LLMs. So we're about to release finally something that is in beta for some customer make AI tools to a broader audience, enhancing the capabilities of it. So if you have any ideas, wishes, things you want to feedback us, hey, really, it's a good time. Let us know what kind of like built-in modules and models we should support for make AI tools. Then we're working on something that, if it works, is going to be fundamentally game-changing in the way you build Make. Well, so I will not teaser what it is, and I will not go in detail there, but there is coming up something really, really neat. It's in a technical state where we feel really comfortable, but it will take time to be UX consumable, and it will take time to be actually at scale available. But if this is going to work, it's going to be a game changer in terms of how you build and how you operate Make. And the third piece is, of course, the agent itself. So I already teasered pieces of it. So we're working on selecting single modules in an agent directly. Nevertheless, for myself, when I play around with it, I always end up in like, yeah, but I would love to filter this in that email. And I start like, okay, I select a single module, but then I ultimately realize I want actually a more complex determinated piece instead of just a module. So maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we should prioritize modules higher there. Anyway, we're working on history, chatting, various UX improvements, also making agents more reliable. There are some things we will do. You were mentioning in the intro, it's not pieced directly to our AI strategy because it's more of like an integration topic, MCP. We are having an MCP server, so what I just said, you can import any scenario as an MCP endpoint into your cursor or into Anthropic. Of course, there is the ideation around, okay, do we do also an MCP's client? I can't confirm that right now, but things are definitely in research motion where we are evaluating what to do next.
So do you want to double click into MCP? And maybe for those who don't know what MCP is, sort of like maybe you could explain that for them, and also where your head's at with that and the use cases at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So let's take an API. I think some of you might know APIs. APIs are basically the standard communication protocol or interface, however you define it, between programs, between applications. So we have English as our interface to understand each other. So have software programs API. Now, LLMs, if you give them the API, you would always need to tell them basically, hey, these are like all API endpoints available. You're not going to do that in your prompt. You're not going to send that along in your prompt. The agent doesn't know how to consume, how to use them, what are the options, what are the inputs, or the LLM. And so if you have an MCP server, you could just say, hey, dear LLM, here's my address. You can call me. Once you call me, I will give you back 19 options, let's say, what you could do, what I offer in terms of making sense of what the user wants from you. Let's say, Jack, you are requesting to send Sebastian a Slack message. I'm Slack MCP. I will send you back all 19 options saying send message, delete message, update message, create channel, whatever. And now the LLM says, cool, I have here Sebastian who wants to send Jack a message. I have the send message available. And then in the MCP, it does another request to the server and returns basically the data structures and all the communication things it needs, and then takes out of the initial user prompt the data to fill out all the fields and sends it over to the MCP server, comes back, sum up, works. I hope it kind of like wraps it up.
No, definitely, that makes good sense. And actually, I think one module I would love to have them make is a code module. Actually, especially because I think if you give it access to the right libraries and stuff, I feel like it's almost like the WD-40 of the world. Like, like outputs aren't outputting the way you wanted to. You can kind of like fudge your way through it a little bit. So I found that really powerful. Actually, is there any desire on your part, or like in terms of getting some kind of code module in Make to kind of do?
I'd love to have that code module as well. I can just.
We do have like JavaScript functions on the enterprise plan where you can build out like simple things like you have like the traditional functions that are already in Make, but then you can create your own JavaScript functions. But yeah, I mean, like having access to Python or having access to like code modules is like a pretty heavily requested feature across a bunch of our customers.
Cool. All right, I love it. Let's get that on the roadmap, and I like that. So let's talk about broader ecosystem for a sec. Let's zoom out a little bit. How do you see, guys, your differentiator, do you think, in the marketplace? I know like, a lot of conversations about different platforms, Appia, N8N. What's your guys' view on the? Because you're in a really beautiful market, like as a SaaS. Actually, I think it's like a really high growth area. But where do you see? What's your pathway? What's your differentiator? Do you think as you go forward? Like,
so this like a really wide question, if I understood correctly, like how we see the market, where's things evolving towards the software industry and into the automation market?
Yeah, because I guess we'll come on to like self-hosting a little bit because I know a lot of people talk about that, but it's also about like revenue per customer, right? Like, I know you guys like and you love cater to all like business owners. I always find that actually, if you're a business owner that just wants to get something set up, it's easy just to kind of see the modules and stuff. But yeah, because I mean, I tend to think about these things very commercially. It seems like, okay, if I were like advising like Make or N8N or Zapier, where would I think strategically the value is? But yeah, like maybe if we're going to the commercial side, like what do you see? Like, first of all, market thoughts. Second of all, your direction, like for your user or your use case.
So I can generically answer this. What we take a really close look on is who's our customer and who's our segment and who are the users that really thrive on Make, that can really apply Make, that take Make to the next level, that make it work with their customers or directly. So when looking at these customers, I think, and that holds true for every business around the world, be obsessed with your customer, try to understand your customer as good as possible. I think we got better there over the last year to really try understanding, okay, and talking way more to our customers, really understanding, hey, what's their need? What do they, like, it's always like, okay, what problem do they have? And what do they say and what do they want? Because ultimately what they want might be for themselves a solution to your problem, but you could actually do something else that might solve the problem way faster or makes the problem not even disappear in the first place. So this is something we're taking a really close look, and I would recommend that to any company around the world. Hey guys, check out your customer bases, because usually if you're at scale like we are, you have all the information there. You just got to take a look at it. Observe where the data moves, observe growth rates, churn rates, where things are going away, why are they going away? Why are things growing? Why are certain things growing beyond other things? And so basically analyze the data, and it will lead you to qualitative user interviews that are amazing, where you learn the actual reasons behind it. And that's actually how, like, where I spend most of my time, right? I analyze a lot of stuff, I try to see a lot of stuff, try to understand and make sense of it, and then basically build a strategy around it. How we do it precisely in Make and what we're thinking, we will keep it for ourselves.
Okay, man,
I think real quick, I think the market
Go
changes
ahead.
really quickly. Just like you said, Sebastian, like there's so many different factors that affect Make, and I think Make's product is just so unique that there's like so many different things that we can focus on, that we can build. And like, I mean, on the engineering side, we have like people that come up with new ideas every day. We have like internal idea boards where it really comes down to like, what do the customers need? What do our customers, where are they going to get the most value? And like, how are we going to empower them? How are we going to make it possible for them to build what they want? Because it's like, so we want to make our customers innovate like without limits. Like we want to be able to have them build anything they want. And I think with Make, I think it's always going to be that we want to make it easy for people to build automations where you don't necessarily have to be a developer, or you don't have to be someone that has years of experience to build a simple automation where, you know, where you have those like simple use cases you can easily do and Make, but also we don't want to limit people to those simple use cases. We want to be able to help them build more sophisticated workflows, even on the enterprise side, where it comes to like Salesforce integrations, NetSuite integrations, these like big projects that companies right now, they're doing in Make, and they're using Make to do these projects where before you would have to hire a developer, you'd have to hire these like teams, and these projects take like 8, 10, 12 months to develop with a team of like 10 to 15 people, where now we want to have like maybe 1, 2, or 3 people working on these projects. They get implemented quickly, you know, 2 to 3 months, so 5 to 6 times faster. Companies can start getting the value, and then you're going to be able to, like, if you understand Make at a very high level, now you can charge these companies to do these implementations using Make, and you can also charge them less than what a developer would. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer for most companies. And in addition, with the value proposition that I see with Make is you can change your scenarios really quickly, where if you're LLM, you know, it's getting too expensive, switch it out for another one. If you decide to switch from Salesforce to HubSpot, your CRM changes, you can easily make those changes. I think that's where Make and the value comes in, where you're going to be able to make changes much easier, and it's much faster than build.
I love that, man. I mean, it's actually funny. We think of customers. There's what they want, and then there's what they need. And like I was on a client call and they were said, I need to get this MCP set. And I was like, it was all over the map. I was like, dude, you don't know what you want. I think they've seen a lot of videos and asking to random stuff. I like that. The way some of my thoughts on it is you have the value ladder, right? You've removed the need necessarily for developer now. Freaking cool. Love that. Actually, then there's the intellectual investment aspect of it. Is like, okay, I've got a business. There's obviously value that can be added. There's work on the builder to think about the application layer of how do I use the technology to do cool stuff for the business. AI automation platforms, I think they can keep bridging that gap between we just keep making it more accessible to like the closer you can get to plug and play with stuff, like the more it can understand about your business natively, its integrations, its context, and you can just sort of like, oh, cool. It also does that bit of work for me now. You've given me the tools, but now it's like pre-assembling the Lego builds for you based on where you're at. Like there's an interesting level there at the moment where we kind of also kind of like add value and remove that requirement from the user to do that kind of thinking.
It's a really, really good question. I'm not sure if I have an answer to that.
Well, one for the whiteboard. It's like the way that I also see the market is like there's the value, like basically there's the supply and the demand, and actually I think like the amount of value that can be delivered to businesses through automation platforms versus what's actually been delivered is unbelievable. And as the technologies get better, everything just gets pushed back on that innovation technology adoption curve. So the market's so fast growing. I don't think there's ever been a better time to get involved in automation for your business. And the technology is super exciting because it's changing over time. What I wanted to double click into as well is a little bit on one is self-hosting. Will Make ever be self-hosted? And what are your thoughts on self-hosting perception? That's something that pops up quite a bit. And then I'd love to get some thoughts on a topic that's not talked about a lot, which is security, vulnerability with flows, especially if we're dealing with like clients' data and stuff like that.
So going to your first question, self-hosting. I know there are a lot of customers that would love to host Make themselves. You don't want that. Like, I really... So let me maybe elaborate a bit on my experience that I gained over the last over 10 years in IT. So I installed countless servers. I installed countless server-side applications, customer-facing applications, from bare metal, Linux, Ubuntu, Debian distributions towards full-stack cloud. So basically all 7 layers of like real infrastructure, really like partly really hardware infrastructure where you set up the rack towards literally cloud. So, and there's so much that you need to handle when you are self-hosting something that's incredible. Like, super simple thing, is your domain behind Cloudflare? If your domain is not behind Cloudflare or any other comparable provider, how do you prevent DDoSing your service? Hey, how is your CI/CD pipeline looking like into your self-hosted environment? I'm a big fan of having local host on my machine. I'm a big fan of it's on my private computer. I run a lot of local software. But even for my hobby projects, I pay $20 in the cloud because I just don't want to manage it. I had, and I cannot tell you like 2 more examples. I had a competitive software once breaking, and it took me a lot of times to debug that because the database ran out of disk space and I had inconsistency in records. It was a terrible experience.
Just having nightmares thinking about it.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like, the second thing I experienced is there was PHP version, different software product. PHP versions were incompatible, and you were not able to upgrade the software anymore because there was like some compatibility issues in their source code that was not with the new version. So we had to like really pay somebody to go in there, enhance the software for the new version of PHP because the server got updated because of security issues and fixes, but the actual application was not able to run anymore. So this normal IT service management. Like there's multiple things, multiple. It's like if you look at it, there are multiple frameworks for it, and this pie of complexity for IT service management and cloud infrastructure management. Like usually these guys are paid nearly six-figure amounts, even like in Europe. I'm speaking Europe wages here, and not for like because they're rare and they're really smart. And now when people are like, "Yeah, I would like to host that thing for my business myself," like, good luck, go for it. You in 2 years, your server is a cheese with a lot of holes where people can invade your server if you don't proxy it. Like so many people don't use SSH. They just have like admin and some password. It's like, yeah, you just DDoS this down once you know the IP address. And even with AI, it's like really, the guys just pay $20 for a cloud solution that covers this security topic. It's amazing to self-host, don't get me wrong. I love it for private purposes. I would not self-host.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? These are all unhidden questions people don't think about with self-hosting and stuff. Yeah, it's also like, I guess for your typical user, the amount of knowledge you need to acquire to make sure it's set up and secure. Yeah. I guess you just made an interesting point there on security, actually. Like, do you want to expand a little bit on this is something that is very like platform agnostic, right? In terms of like security and vulnerability. You made a point, AI is getting better. Obviously it is, right? But it's almost like, I don't see much of we just did a roundtable on like, actually, what are the security best practices that you really need to follow? Like you just pointed self-hosting. That's a really important one. But actually, we're thinking about sharing API keys. We're sharing about like prompt injections. Do you guys want to share a little bit on like what you can do at a platform level to support like enterprise customers and business customers? But also like, what do people need to be doing like on these platforms? Because it's a conversation we don't really have quite a lot, I think.
So
I think,
yeah, go ahead, Boris. Go ahead.
yeah, I think so for the enterprise customers, I mean, Make runs on like AWS servers. We have the security certifications, the SOC 2, the ISO certificates. So we have like the standard security protocols that like your traditional SaaS apps require. And like Sebastian was saying, like getting all of this set up on your own with the self-hosted thing. I think the thing with self-hosted and what a lot of people, what the value proposition of self-hosted is essentially it's free because you can run it on your system. And, you know, for those small personal projects, it might be a good thing. But when you're wanting to use it for like a core business process, like if that server goes down, now you have to either have a full-time employee manage the server, or you as a business owner are going to have to manage it yourself. So now you just have this like big thing on your plate. But with security, I mean, I think there's like a lot of different things you can do. I mean, obviously don't like copy and paste passwords into Make, things like that with API keys. Yeah, I'm not the security expert, but I think just make sure you cover the basics. But once we get into more like sophisticated things, I mean, I think Sebastian could probably answer that better than me.
Yeah. So if I can just like touch like let's say you're not self-hosting, you don't need to handle server side, application side, user side security issues, and when it comes like to Make and security as a Make user, please enable 2FA. First thing, please have 2FA activated. Best use if you are interested, use single sign-on for your enterprise. If you are using keys, you can amazingly store keys on Make. You can encrypt keys. We have a key module. You can use this to store keys instead of hard coding them into set variable modules, or just having them in plain text and like an text input field. So these are like super simple 4 things you can do. In HTTP app, if you're having a header where you use an API token in clear text, use the HTTP app where it actually asks you to create a key. I think it's make an authorized basic request. I'm not 100% sure on the naming, but we have an HTTP app where you can put your keys sanitized into the app. Things like this. So there are multiple options how you can make it work. When it comes to account sharing, you can invite unlimited people into Make, nearly unlimited. Use this. Yeah? Of course, there is a topic which is coming up regularly, and that's private / shareable connections. We know this isn't optimal in Make right now, but we are looking into this.
Okay, that's really handy to know. I mean, 'cause I had a funny story of a guy built a web application for voice, and he said, "Dude, I just made like 15K with this thing," and he caught on the wrong thread on Reddit, and then he got attacked, and it kind of like blasted through his credits. So, yeah, you got to make sure you kind of like cover dot your I's and cross your T's with that. Beautiful guys. That is, I think, a really beautiful wraparound of like where we're at, where we're heading. Is there anything else you would love to share with the people? Anything that we want to touch on before we descend into the beautiful pink and purple sunset?
Test the edge and give us feedback. And tell us what
Okay.
to do next. It's always
Test it, give us some feedback. Okay, I love that.
I'll say from my side, if you're looking into like the AI automation business, like I encourage everyone to just think bigger, right? So we have partners on our side that work with these like large enterprise corporations that need AI automation at their company. Like every company right now, I mean, automation has existed for like a long time, but with AI automation, like you're able to build out these workflows faster, and you're able to build more sophisticated things where you don't have to hard code all of the edge cases in. So look at the environment, talk to different people in your network, understand where these gaps are in the market, where you can potentially fill in the gaps with AI automation, and just don't think about like the small companies. Think about the bigger companies. Like, for example, like we have a partner, Globant, which is like an IT service company. They use Make for their workflows with some of our customers, and they're not charging like $2,000 for automation. Like these are like 100x price tags on these implementations. So encourage everyone to think bigger, and there's a really big market out there that you can take advantage of. If you're someone that's like really big into automation, maybe find someone else that can handle the sales side on a better side and knows how to like get leads, how to work the sales process, team up, go together, start a business like that. I feel like the opportunities are endless, and every single industry in the world needs automation, whether it's farming, whether it's SaaS, whether it's, the most boring industries ever. They have these legacy systems. They have these like old systems that don't talk to each other, or they're having these like issues where leads are falling through. Like I have these conversations every day with different enterprise customers, and a lot of them have these issues that can be solved with automation. So just think bigger.
Dude, I love that. Don't think too small. We've got to think big. We've got to play with the agents and crush it. Well, guys, we'll look forward to catching up again in X months' time when the whole world has changed and AI agents aren't cool anymore. We're talking about something even bigger and crazier. So thank you both for coming on. Have a beautiful weekend. And guys, we'll catch you in the next one.